welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time. I hope everyone's having a good day, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about bits and maybe even a bit about bridles too if we have enough time. So I think that bits, of course, are one of the most important aspects of riding horses, whether you ride with a bit, without a bit, or whatever. It's really important to understand and know how bits work. So I'm going to start by explaining a little bit about snaffles. So these are probably one of the most common types of bits you'll see. They have no shank on them like this, which amplifies the pressure that you put on the reins. However, many snaffles can be just as harsh as leverage bits or bits with shanks, so don't think that just because it's a snaffle it instantly equals a soft bit. This here is a D-ring snaffle with a single joint in it. This is a very nice bit for a lot of horses, especially horses with wider mouth clearance. So sometimes whenever you're pulling back or if you're trying to hold contact, this can go and press up into the roof of their mouth, which can cause some discomfort. But it also depends on the type of horse that you have and the conformation of their mouth. Things like thoroughbreds or horses like thoroughbreds typically have much bigger lips and tongues, as well as the roof of their mouth has less clearance. So it tends to be, they need smaller bits and bits that don't press up into the top of their mouth. So this bit here is very similar to the last one, except for it has these cheek pieces. So this will help a horse understand the rein pressure a bit and help them turn with it a bit. So whenever you're pulling to the right, it puts the right keeper against the horse's mouth. There's plenty of different types of like rings or attachments that they have. This is just a simple O-ring. And I don't like these ones as much because they can pinch the horse's mouth, but it's all about preference. This one is made out of Hermspringer steel, which is a fancy steel. It's very light, and the horses tend to like how it tastes. So for this, you can get actual rubber guards, so you can still put it in the horse's mouth without worrying about it getting pinched. So this right here is another snaffle, which if you're curious, a snaffle is a bit that does not have any sort of leverage, like what I showed a little bit earlier, and I'll go more into details about that in a bit. But this one I love because it's jointed twice. So whenever you pull back or hold pressure, it kind of breaks instead of just pushing directly into the top of the horse's mouth real aggressively. It's better for horses with small mouths or sensitive mouths, like a lot of thoroughbreds. So I can't recommend this bit enough. It's copper coated, so it tastes really good. I just love it. I have yet to meet a horse that doesn't like it. So next up we have a couple different leverage bits. This is typical of what you think of as for Western riders. So it has a mullen mouth, which means a straight across mouthpiece, well, a non-broken mouthpiece. It has a small port to help alleviate pressure on the tongue. And these bits are nice. They're a lot stronger than the average snaffle, depending on what the mouthpiece of the snaffle has. But if you're using light hands, have a very well-trained horse, I can definitely see the advantage to these. I don't ride in them as much just because I don't have a need to, but I think that they're awesome bits, and I like this one quite a bit because this one is made out of aluminum, so even though it's a big bit, it's still really, really light. So next up here we have another type of leverage bit that or you can decide to not use it as a leverage bit, which is pretty interesting. This is a low-ported Kimberwick. I used to use this on Percy a lot because she used to put her tongue over the bit. I don't use it as more. I think that it's a little bit more aggressive than what I need to be using for her, but no shame to anyone who uses this bit. If it works for you, then that's great for you. But I'm probably not going to be using it much anymore. However, a nice thing about Kimberwicks is they can have a much smaller port than this one because that puts a lot of pressure against the top of the mouth. And then you can also choose how much leverage you want. So if you put it down here, you're going to get more leverage than up here. Or if you put it right here, then it works just like a snaffle. So I think that's very interesting. And then you have the curb chain, which most leverage bits have, and it kind of helps hold it in place a little better. Another very common bit you'll see is a tom thumb, which it's very similar to our snaffles here, where it only has this single broken joint. But then the leverage bit, so it's not an actual snaffle, but it looks like some of these. However, I don't recommend using those. Some bits are strong, but can still be used. I just believe that Tom Thumbs are fairly mechanically flawed, because even with light pressure, you're going to be causing a nutcracker effect, which means you're going to pull back and this is going to go into the top of the horse's mouth, which can cause hairline fractures over time, especially without light hands. And you'll notice some bits have different mouthpieces. And this one's very interesting because it has these little like keys almost here that the horses like to play with their tongue and just enjoy, you know, being a little bit mouthy. And it's supposed to taste good to the horse. I haven't tried it, but I mean, if you want to lick your bits, I don't really recommend it, but it's yours. And my main thing with this one is I feel it could be a little bit pinchy if I rid on a lot of contact, meaning I kept constant light pressure on the reins. But I think that a lot of horses like this. I think my mare used to like this bit quite a bit, but we've switched over to bitless, which I can get into in a minute. This is a hackamore, which isn't necessarily bitless as you might think, but the horse's nose goes through it like that. And whenever you pull back, it presses into this little divot right here. So if you can see my drawing, it's not the best drawing in the world, but the orange stripes represent different nerves that are very common, the cranial nerves. And right about here is where you have the biggest concentration, which happens to be the exact same spot that this presses into. So I no longer use this type of bit because it is a very, very strong bit, and I think it's very important for people to understand that just because it's not inside the horse's mouth doesn't instantly make it a weak bit. So here's a true bitless bridle. I like this bridle quite a bit, and I think that it's very nice, though it does have some disadvantages. It crosses underneath in a bit of an X pattern, so whenever you're pulling back, it gives the face almost a whole hug, which does apply similarly to leverage bits, pull pressure up here, and some horses don't like that. But most horses are fine with it. My biggest problem with this one is that it doesn't give as quick as a release as I'd like if I'm working on more complex dressage or something. So what I could use, which I don't have one to show you, would be a side pull, where instead of having these pieces cross under, the reins would touch directly to this right here, the nose band. So it gives exact direct pressure right onto the bridge of the nose. So now I'm going to be talking about nose bands a little bit and the general fit of the bridle. The nose band is this part right here. It helps keep the bridle more stable and the bit in, and it's just a traditional thing that most English riders use. You'll not see it as much in Western, like this, but there's quite a bit that goes into nose bands. So the first thing you want to look out for is when you're actually fitting it to the horse. You don't want it to be so far down that it's interfering with the bit, but you don't want it to be so far up that you're pressing on these nerves. So you're going to have it down above the bit a couple of inches. And then if you're going for a bitless, I like to have mine a little bit higher so it's not on this flimsy bone up here, but not so high that it's pressing into the nerves. So this right here is a padded crank nose band. So why it's called a crank nose band is because it has this roller here, so you can put it up as tight as possible in case you're trying to keep your horse's mouth closed, which for me, I've learned that if a horse is trying to evade the bit that much, there's probably a reason for it, so it's important to look into that. I don't use the crank nose band that tight, so you can use it looser. This one, I just bought it like this, and that's how it is. And then I also have a flash right here, which I don't tend to ride in either. And what this does is it goes in front of the bit right here, so it would come down, go in front of the bit, and then it holds the mouth shut some more, because a lot of horses will open their mouth trying to evade cues, trying to escape the pressure of the bit for one reason or another. I don't use flashes because in a lot of cases, if the horse is opening their mouth, there's a reason for it, whether it's past misuse of bits or whether it's that their current bit doesn't fit right. It's important to look into, and a lot of the time, you know, I'm not saying that there's no reason for flashes to exist, because I'm sure there are, but in my experience, I just don't typically use them. So overall, bits are a very, very important aspect of riding, but they should not be the only means of controlling your horse. You shouldn't have to be yanking on their face to control them. That can come from a training issue or that the bit doesn't fit properly. A lot of hard-mouthed horses you hear about have been ridden in stronger and stronger bits because somebody was riding them with strong hands a lot of the time. Of course, there's different things that can cause a hard mouth. And then you have to keep riding in harsher and harsher bits, and there's some ways that you can work with that and train that out of horses, but it's hard work. And just about any bit can be used as a torture device or even a non-bit if you're using it in an aggressive way. So please be nice to your horses. Remember that they are living, breathing, feeling animals, and use your hands as softly as you can. So you might have some horses out there that simply just don't like to take the bit. There's so many different reasons for it. I could go on and on. However, it's important to reinforce to the horse that it's a positive experience and that they aren't going to be like attacked they aren't going to have their mouth attacked every time they ride. So I've heard of, and I have used honey on the bit, or sometimes put the bit in, take it out, give the horse a treat if the horse is a little bit more secure. Some horses will rear up to try and escape the bit, and for those I prefer the honey method, and you just want to take your time with that. If they're that scared of bits or that worked up about bits, it's important to take small steps. You'll hopefully have this horse for a while, so you'll have a lot of time to train it. Don't try and do it all in one day. A lot of horses that react bigly to bits have some sort of past fear. This brings us to our conclusion. I think that it's very important to make sure that the bit you're using fits the horse, it fits your needs, and it's used in a kind manner. I hope that this helped you some, and there's always lots of resources online you can look into more. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, or leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.